Hi, this is Bruce Buffer, your voice of the Octagon, and you're listening to MMA Mental.
Okay, we are now joined by Rosi Sexton. Rosi will be the first British woman to fight in the UFC, and she'll be facing Alexis Davies at UFC 161 in Winnipeg, Canada. First of all, Rosi, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to speak to you again.
My pleasure. Right, let's just jump straight in. How are you feeling?
I'm a whole mix of things, really. I'm excited. I mean, it's fantastic. It's my head's still spinning, really. It's only just started to sink in now. I mean, we've been sort of starting on the training camp already, so yeah, getting down to work, really. But yeah, it still feels a little bit unreal. You know, I think I'll believe it's happening when I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, this is huge. When you first started out in MMA, did you ever imagine or picture this moment?
Only in my wildest dreams. Yeah, I had no expectation that it would ever actually happen. I thought having a women's division in the UFC, I thought it would happen, but I never thought it would happen in time for me. So I think the fact that this opportunity's come up now, I mean, it's amazing. You know, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. You can't say no to that.
No, it's absolutely fantastic, and it just shows you if you're willing to put the hard work in, then obviously things are going to come your way. I mean, you're one of the, you know, you've got a reputation for being one of the hardest workers on the UK scene, and finally you're getting the recognition that you deserve from the big show. Let's go through. Let's talk about how this all came about. So, explain to me how you were contacted, who was contacted, you know, what you were doing at the time, and literally, you know, this wave that's hit you. How did you kind of take the news?
Well, it's all gone through my manager. He's Graham Boylan, Intensity Fighter Management, and I mean he's dealt with the whole thing. He's absolutely fantastic. You know, if it wasn't for his hard work, it would never have happened. So I think all the credit so far has to go to him. I mean, basically, it all started a few months back after the Ronda Rousey Liz Carmouche fight, and I sort of sat down with my coach, and he kind of said to me, "Well, what are you doing at the moment?" I said, "Well, I'm just earning some money. I'm enjoying some grappling. You know, where are you going with this?" And he said, "Well, if you're offered a UFC fight, would you take it?" It's a funny question. Yeah, of course I would, but I don't really see that happening, you know. And he goes, "Okay, well, leave it with me." And he went off and talked to my manager about it, and then he contacted the UFC, and there was lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. And next thing is, a couple of months later, it was last Wednesday, in fact, at 5-1, phone rang, and Graham's name came up. And I just had a funny feeling when I answered the phone. It's like, okay, this could be something big. And he said, "Have you got a few minutes to talk?" And I said, "Well, I've got a couple of minutes. Why, what's up?" And he said, "I've got a UFC fight for you if you want it. Call me back when you're free." and that was it, really. So yeah, it's been a mad sort of week.
How taken aback were you by the news? I mean, this isn't the kind of thing that happens on an everyday basis. I mean, this, you know, if you're in mixed martial arts, and no disrespect to any of the promotions, there's lots of fantastic promotions out there in the UK, in Europe, you know, in America, but the UFC is the pinnacle. So what were your emotions when you heard the news that you'd been offered a fight in the UFC?
I had to sit down, put it that way. Yeah, it was. It's hard to describe, really. I suppose there was that feeling of incredible excitement, you know, and to have the opportunity and the, oh my God, it's really coming, you know, it's really happening. And I suppose also that sort of, what have I just got myself into? You know, a bit of everything, really. It's
I mean, obviously get the call up to the UFC is one thing, but not only have you had the call up, but you're straight on to a pay-per-view card, you're straight on to the main card, and if you look at the rest of the card, especially say for example the top 3 fights on that card, I mean, you talk about names, I mean there's some of the biggest names in the sport. What's it like knowing you're going to be on the same card as those names?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, I think when I first heard the news, I didn't realise how big a deal it was going to be. I think, I think it's going to be on the prelims or something like that. And then when I found out it's on the main card, it's a big event, and it just kept building. It's just sort of realising that okay, this is for real. And yeah, that took a while to sink in, really. So it's been a really surreal sort of week. I mean, I got the call on Wednesday, and then like 12 hours later, I'm elbow deep in paperwork, it's for a while. I was waking up in the morning and not quite believing that it wasn't a dream. But yeah, it's starting to sink in now.
It's fantastic. Just for people listening, just so they can listen, they know the names we're talking about. I mean, the main event is Henan Barrow versus Eddie Wyland for the interim bantamweight champion, and then you've got the co-main, which is Shogun Rua versus Antonio Ruggiero, Little Nog, and then the other light heavyweight bout is Rashad Evans versus Dan Henderson. So I mean, these are the biggest names in the sport. I mean, Shogun and obviously Little Nog are legends right from the Pride Fighting Championship days. You've got Henan Barrow champion, Rashad Evans and Dan Henderson, former champions of UFC or Pride respectively. So I mean, you don't get much bigger than that. When they approached you about the fight, did you find out an opponent straight away, or was there a bit of build up before you found out the opponent?
Yeah, no, I got the opponent straight off. So.
What do you know about your opponent?
She's a very good grappler. She's been around in that weight division for some time now. She's put together a few really good performances in her last couple of fights. So it's going to be a tough fight. This is going to be a real test. I think it's an interesting style matchup. I mean, I think we're both grapplers. We're slightly different sort of grapplers. We've got a slightly different style. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
And with regards to your current to this fight, is it with regards to UFC? Does it work on like a one fight basis? So, or have you got a few fights? Have you signed a contract for a few fights? Or how does your deal work with the UFC?
It's a 4-fight contract, but basically it's only the first one that's guaranteed, as far as I'm concerned. You've got to go out there and put on a good showing. I think that's the bottom line.
Of course, yeah, and I think that's the same for every division, and we've seen that with some of the biggest names as well, haven't we? Okay, so you talked a little bit about you said you've started your training camp. So who are you training with? Who are some of the people, and what camp are you with?
I'm training at Next Generation in Liverpool. Paul Rimmer's my main coach. I also do some work with Peter Irving, who's based down in London. And my strength and conditioning, I do it Strength and Performance in Stockport. They take care of all of that. So I've got a really good training camp. I've got a bunch of very solid training partners up in Liverpool, and I've also got some other fantastic female grapplers and MMA fighters who I train with on a fairly regular basis. So I'll be setting up some sparring with them and making sure I get lots of really good sparring partners together. Okay,
moving away from this for a moment and looking at the bigger picture of women's MMA. Obviously, you've been fighting for a long, long time, and we're finally getting to see women in MMA given the respect they deserve, given the platform they deserve. Obviously, with UFC, of course, the biggest platform in the world. I think Victor FC has done a lot for women's MMA. How exciting is it to have seen this within, like you said, you knew this was going to happen, but you didn't think it was going to happen within your career. How exciting is it for you to see this happening while you're still an active fighter?
I mean, it's incredible. It's immensely exciting. And it happened a lot faster than I thought it was going to. I think the momentum from the from Ronda Rousey's fight, and the fact that that went down really well. I think it's just something. The time has come for women in the UFC, and it's great to be a part of that. To be able to be involved right from the word go.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is obviously going to be one of the earlier women fights. I know we've got Misha Tate and Kat Zingano after next this weekend. I'm not sure. Is this going to be the third female fight, or is there more?
I think the next one is Sarah McMahon and Sheila Gaff.
Yes, then. So I mean, you are right in at the beginning, aren't you? Which is absolutely fantastic. Well, obviously, I mean, like I said, I interviewed you before. We spoke quite a while ago, and I was over the moon when I saw the news. Having interacted with you before, I was obviously really pleased that you've been given the call up, because I know how hard you work. I follow you on Twitter, so I know how hard you work. So. But I just want to say, a massive congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing you get your first UFC victory.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, before we let you go, I just want to give you a chance to do some shout-outs. You want to shout out any friends, family, sponsors? I know we're a few weeks out, or a few months out from the fight, but any shout-outs you want to do?
Yeah, Mike Lane from Unorthodox Nutrition, who's dealing with my nutrition for this, which is actually quite a big deal because I'm going up a weight class, so he's got quite a lot of work to do, and he really knows his stuff. So thanks to him. Sponsors, PhD Nutrition. They've looked after me for probably the last 7 years now, I think, and they've taken care of me all the way through. So it's been absolutely fantastic, and I'm using a lot of their stuff at the moment. Scramble Fightwear, they're pretty good to me as well. And I'm sure there's some people I've forgotten. I have a whole load of people who have given me lots of support. Friends, family, people who help me out with training, and I really couldn't do it without a great team behind me. So I'm very grateful for everyone who's helped out.
Well, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you back on the show, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing you make your debut. So thank you for joining us today.
That's great. Thanks, Ray.